Wow, so that's 5 minutes of your life you'll never get back. I apologize. I was on the mute. Really takes the fun out of the art lesson. Rich is, oh, now people will tell me I have no sound on. Rich is not upside down. Rich is using my Skycam. And so here's a really super quick art lesson. Hopefully I've got my sound on this time, so that should make a better art lesson. Here is the inexpensive frames that you can buy at, I think we got these ones at Michael's. You bend these up and you lift them up, pull the back side out, and you pull out a sheet like this that's got the studio decor lifestyles. The false picture that's just sitting in the frame. I mean, I actually think it'd be super funny if more people just hung the frames with these false pictures in. Let's get the size and what have you. Now, normally what you do is you pull these out. I'd use a screwdriver so you don't stab yourself in the nail right here. Stab yourself in the nail. Stab yourself in the nail with these. Pull out the back. You throw this out, and then you put your pictures in, and your pictures are nice and framed. However, what I was going to tell you is when you pull these out, I would suggest keeping the paper, because this particular paper is always, no matter what frame company is using it, it's always super nice for drawing with markers in. So here's an example of how nice the markers go on. I don't know if you can see. It's a smooth, kind of waxy finish, and the markers they dry really quickly, and they hold their color. Fantastic for blending. I'm surprised this isn't a product that whatever paper they use inside of the frames, I'm surprised you can't just buy frame paper because you like to draw on it, because it's super nice with your markers. And it soaks up the marker and they blend really well. And like I said, I'm not sure what this paper is called. There probably is something equivalent to it in the art store. But whenever I get one of these, I flip them over and I use them. There's usually 4 or 5 people on that there isn't today. So here's the secret I was going to show you. These markers, moikas, as my son would call them, these markers are the cheapest, like, whole package of 12 for $1 markers. And there's a secret about these markers that you don't know about. And I don't even think the owners of the marker companies, I don't even think Crayola knows about this. Because if they did, they'd charge us twice as much for these markers, and they would call them the Crayola Special Enhanced Watercolor Set. So let's say you're going on a holiday, you don't want to take a bunch of expensive products with you. You grab your dollar store cheapest markers you can find, and the cheaper the better. I actually had to borrow these from one of the junior high teachers because all of my markers are super good and they will not bleed. But these markers, you can bleed the poo-poo out of them. So here's what you do: is you take some clean water, and you take the clean water, you dip your brush in the water, and all of a sudden the Crayola Special Blending watercolor markers turn into the most magical tool that you own. And sometimes, like, I don't have to be like on safari to want to do this. Sometimes I just do it because I like the effect it gets. But it's amazing what you can do with these markers when you turn them into little painting packages. I don't know if that's close enough for you to see. I'll try and get closer. Again, you can use any paper for this. You don't need the frame paper and the markers to do this. But it works really well on the paper that comes out of the frames. And I just love how these markers turn into, like my pencil crayons. It probably was a design flaw somewhere in the pencil crayon company. They made pencil crayons that failed the water test, and they're like, well, we got to throw these out. And they're like, no, it's charged twice as much, and we'll call them the very special. Let's see if I can get closer down. I don't know if this will. I don't know if this is gonna focus this close. Will it? Let's see. There we go. Is that lower or higher? That's good. Can you see my hand? All right. There's nice and close. So yesterday I was showing the coffee cup drawing that I do a lot. And I was showing how you can make an icon. This is another icon of a coffee cup. It's a thing that you know is the coffee cup. You recognize coffee cup. It's almost like spelling the word out. This is a coffee cup. But nobody in the world is going to be confused with this coffee cup and a photograph of a coffee cup. So this is an icon, and this could be an icon that represents an eye. But if you want it to look more like an eye, right, you spend a little more time drawing it, and then you want to render it in such a way that it looks more like a real eye. And maybe one of the reasons markers are hard to do renderings is you have this kind of off-on. You either have dark or nothing, dark or nothing. You don't have like a grayscale, right? Like with this marker, if I put the black down, I got black, and then I don't have black. It goes from black to white. It's a binary. You got black and white, right? And actually, that's something I call more in line with drawing than painting. I tend to think of painting having a lot more blending, and drawing, even if you're using charcoal, I tend to think of it as more like carving. All right, so here's the magic trick. Are you ready for my magic trick? I'm feeling not so much hyper as I shot a whole video. I wondered why nobody wanted to come visit me. I was almost done, and then I noticed there was no sound, which is totally understandable, even with sound. Actually, I might think I'd be more bearable with sound. But the trick to this marker business is you don't want to go over the edge of the line. So you want to leave one side of the line intact as the marker line. That's where you get this nice sharp edge. And then just put the water up to that edge on the other side of the line. So then you have this kind of beautiful effect where you're now painting with watercolors. I really like how this yellow looks, right? And the more ink you lay down when you're doing this, the more you have to play with to drag that ink around and paint with it. The other thing I was going to tell you was if you show this to your kids, or if your kid's watching this, or if you're just a really super impulsive adult, please do not dip the markers in the water. And I feel like, say if I show this to a junior high class, probably 10% of the class is just going to skip the step where they stick the marker into. And now, the other thing I was to say was, you get a different effect from different colors. So the black marker usually turns into a green or a blue or a purple. That's kind of a nice surprise. The gray marker is probably the marker in your set that nobody used, but it makes the best colors out of here. The only thing is it doesn't do it right away. So I do this kind of a disappointment. I come back half an hour later and I see these kind of aurora borealis, and I'm probably saying that wrong. I see all the spectrum of the rainbow start to pop out of this gray. And that's the other great thing about using water with these cheap markers, these inexpensive markers, is that you draw and it looks great, but this is also kind of a lovely surprise where in half an hour it dries, the colors separate, the parts that were touching the edge of the dry spot get more crisp, and the parts that are bleeding in get more bleedy. And I'm running out of my own time here. We'll taste it. Oh, no, I'm good. And then so, so you'll have different effects from different colors. The pinks do not leave a lot of magic, or do they? Let's see. This is a magenta. And no, the magenta works quite well. I find the pinks don't usually work very well. That's not even pink. That's puce. That's my least favorite color. I don't know if I don't like that color, or if I just don't like the word. All of the markers are working super well on this paper. Like I said, I stole this paper out of the frame. Let me give you a little tip about the paper in the frame. When you're done, if your painting works out perfectly, you'll happen to know it perfectly fits the frame that it came in. So there's no cropping. It's like you took the paper from the frame and you put it back in. So whenever I'm framing, I grab these sheets and just throw them in a pile. I often just give a whole pile of them to somebody that's just got a new marker set, because I know that the kids love markers. You can do the same effects that I was doing with the pencil shading with these markers. Again, just one last step. You imagine you're zoomed in here. Imagine this line is an enlargement of this line, or an enlargement of this line. What you want to do with this, I mean, who am I to tell you what you want? What I want you to do with this is put the water down, kind of wiggle up to that edge, okay? But don't go over the edge. Excuse me. That's not COVID. Okay, so water down, don't go over the edge because you want to keep that sharp edge on one side of these lines. And this is a super zoom in, so just pretend this is just one tiny line. What you do is you put the water down and you go over it, but you leave the very, oh, can you see that? That's so fun. And that kind of happens as well for the next half an hour or so while it's drying. You get all these magic kind of watercolor things happening. This is an under $1 marker set. Usually get like 1,000 colors for like $4. And chances are there's a bunch of colors you don't use because they're boring. But you know what? When you start using them as the watercolors, especially in monochromatics, they start to look really lovely. I think I promised you 5 to 10 minutes. It's now at 11 minutes, and I deeply apologize to anybody that watched my first broadcast. It might still be up. Normally I don't do these on YouTube. I do them on my page and the Rumble House page, so if you're my friend or if you're on Rumble House, that's fantastic. Can we refill them? No, they're like dollar markers. You just buy more dollar markers and then they go in the recycling. Can't refill them. They're not expensive. They're the cheapest markers you can buy. The reason they're so cheap is when they get wet, they bleed. But now that you know that, you have superpowers that nobody else knows about. And then if you have some expensive markers, you can mix them. You can do different things where the expensive marker will bleed and the other one won't, right? I mean, the expensive marker won't bleed. So that's my lesson for today. I love you. If you're on YouTube and you happen to see this, I'm doing free lunch lessons for while the kids are at home for the next couple weeks. This isn't the part that's killing me if you hear me complaining a lot, but it's not usually going to be on YouTube. It'll probably just be on my page. And so look for our Facebook page. I'm sorry if you can't really hear my voice today. Bye-bye.